Do you ever wonder what it really takes to achieve greatness? Is it money, talent, luck, or something else entirely? If you've been searching for the hidden principles that separate the extraordinary from the ordinary, then this audiobook summary is for you. Today, we're diving into The Diary of a CEO by Steven Bartlett, a book that reveals the 33 powerful laws of business and life. These are not just theories. They're battle-tested principles that can help you build unshakable confidence, sharpen your skills, create unstoppable momentum, and ultimately design a life of success and fulfillment. By the end of this summary, you'll understand why the world's top performers think differently, act boldly, and achieve what others only dream about. So, make sure you listen until the very end because the final lessons may be the exact breakthrough you've been waiting for. And before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Neuro Whispers, the channel that brings you the best books on success, wealth, mindset, productivity, and personal growth, all in engaging audiobook-style summaries. Now, let's get started. Fill your 5 buckets in the right order. One morning, Dave, a friend of the author, was cleaning his yard when a man stopped by. Drenched in sweat from a long jog, breathless and animated, the stranger began speaking in bursts about microchips, monkeys, and robots powered by artificial intelligence. To Dave, it sounded like the ramblings of someone who had lost touch with reality. He nodded politely, confused, until the man waved goodbye and walked off. That man was Elon Musk, the billionaire visionary behind SpaceX and Tesla. It's funny, isn't it? When you don't know who's speaking, their words can sound like nonsense. But once you discover it's Elon Musk, suddenly the impossible begins to feel possible. His strange ideas weren't fantasies. They were blueprints for the future. And behind his ability to turn the unbelievable into reality lies a simple principle. He had filled what Steven Bartlett calls the 5 buckets of achievement. These buckets are the foundations of greatness. The first is knowledge, what you know. The second is skills, what you can do. The third is your network, who you know. The fourth is resources, what you have. And finally, the fifth is reputation, what others believe about you. Most people assume someone like Elon could easily fill these buckets because of his wealth. But here's the truth. Wealth wasn't where he started. It was the result. Each bucket must be filled in the right order because every step builds on the one before it. Think about your own journey. By attending school, college, or even learning online, you've already begun filling your knowledge bucket. With knowledge comes the chance to build skills, the second bucket. And when you put those skills to use through work, projects, or passion, you naturally begin to connect with others, filling your third bucket, your network. With knowledge, skills, and a strong network, resources begin to flow toward you. And when all of these align, your reputation grows, becoming the final and most visible bucket. The key is sequence. If you chase resources before you've built knowledge and skills, it's like trying to fill a roof before you've laid the foundation. For example, take Gerard. He wanted wealth quickly, so he poured all his energy into chasing money and status. But because he neglected his knowledge and skills, he had no real foundation. Without filling the first buckets, the fourth one, resources, remained empty, no matter how badly he wanted it. Steven Bartlett's message is clear. Greatness is not about shortcuts. Invest first in knowledge, and every other bucket will begin to overflow. To master it, you must create an obligation to teach it. Steven Bartlett was just 14 years old when he faced one of the most humiliating moments of his life. He had been chosen to give the closing speech at a school event. For weeks, he prepared diligently, rehearsing every line, even printing the speech to ensure he wouldn't forget it. But when the big moment came and Steven walked onto the stage, something happened. He froze. Thousands of students and teachers stared back at him, waiting. His palms were sweating, his body stiff, and his voice refused to emerge. To the audience, it was only a few awkward seconds, but to Steven, it felt like an eternity. At last, he forced out a few words before quietly leaving the stage, consumed by embarrassment. That moment never left him. Even years later, after delivering countless speeches in front of huge audiences, the memory of that day haunted him. The question was, how did he transform from the boy who froze in silence to the man known worldwide for his ability to captivate millions with his words? The answer came from a teaching by the spiritual leader Yogi Bhajan. If you want to learn something, read about it. If you want to understand it, write about it. And if you want to master it, teach it. Steven took this to heart. Determined to conquer his fear, he began a simple but life-changing practice. Every evening at 7:00, he would record a short video of himself speaking on a topic. By 8, he would post it online for the world to see. This daily discipline built his knowledge and sharpened his skills, the first 2 buckets of achievement. But more importantly, it exposed him to something invaluable: feedback. People began commenting on his videos, pointing out strengths and weaknesses. The more he posted, the more pressure he felt to improve because his reputation was on the line. And that pressure became his greatest teacher. Over time, his small experiment grew into something extraordinary. His audience expanded to millions. His ability to communicate turned from a weakness into one of his greatest strengths, and he learned a vital truth. Mastery doesn't happen in private. It happens in public, where you risk failure, where you risk your reputation. If you want to share your ideas with the world, you must dare to speak them out loud. Step onto the stage, face the discomfort, and do it again and again. Because mastery doesn't come from hiding. It comes from showing up consistently where people can see and hear you. Useless absurdity will define you more than useful practicalities. At just 20 years old, Steven Bartlett launched his first marketing company. Not long after, one of his clients, impressed by its potential, invested $300,000 into the business. For a young entrepreneur with more ideas than experience, this money felt like rocket fuel. Steven set out to build his company in the most exciting way he could imagine. Before ordering desks and chairs, before even thinking about printers or office supplies, he built a gaming room. And then came his most outrageous idea: a $16,000 bright blue slide that ended in a giant ball pit right in the middle of the office. It was a decision that baffled everyone. Seasoned CEOs and business leaders shook their heads in disbelief. To them, it was reckless, even foolish. Why waste precious funds on a slide when there were so many practical needs? But Steven didn't stop there. He made sure the office had free food and drinks available at all times, and even planted a tree at the heart of the workspace. To outsiders, it looked absurd, but that absurdity worked. The slide turned Steven's young company into one of the most talked-about startups in the world. They didn't have a sales team. They didn't spend a penny on marketing, yet the slide itself became their marketing campaign. Journalists, bloggers, and media outlets swarmed to cover the office with the blue slide. It was ridiculous, yes, but it was unforgettable. Why did it work? Because it made a statement. The slide wasn't useful in the traditional sense. Employees rarely used it, but it sent a message. This company was different. It was bold, creative, and unafraid to break the rules. The slide symbolized success, innovation, and even playfulness, qualities that attracted attention and curiosity. Of course, Steven isn't suggesting you run out and install a giant slide in your office. The point is bigger than that. The blue slide is a metaphor for absurdity. In branding, absurdity is powerful because it stands out. People don't talk about what's ordinary. They talk about what's unusual, surprising, even a little outrageous. Think about it. If someone tells you they bought a new phone with a better camera and more storage, you might not care. But if they tell you their phone camera can zoom 1,000 times, or that the battery somehow lasts until the very last drop, you lean in. You want to hear more. Absurdity sparks conversation. It makes people curious. And in business, conversation is priceless. Steven's gamble was proof that sometimes the biggest rewards come from the boldest, most unconventional ideas. The frame matters more than the picture. Picture yourself walking into a gadget store near your home. The shelves are overflowing. Phones, tablets, chargers, cases. Thousands of options stacked high. At first glance, you might think this is a good thing. Surely, the more choices a customer has, the more likely they are to buy. That feels logical, doesn't it? But in reality, it's the opposite. Now, think about Apple. Walk into an Apple store and it feels less like a shop and more like an art gallery. The space is wide, almost empty. Instead of endless options, you see just a handful of products: one iPhone, one iPad, one MacBook, each displayed with reverence, almost like a masterpiece under a spotlight. That is the power of framing. Framing is not about lying or deceiving. It's about how you present something so that people feel its value. Apple frames their products to create the illusion of rarity. And we as humans instinctively desire what seems scarce. If it's rare, it must be valuable. If it's valuable, we want it. This principle applies everywhere. Take food marketing. Imagine a product label that says contains 10% fat. Technically true, but not very appealing. Now reframe it. 90% fat-free. Suddenly it sounds healthier, cleaner, more attractive, even though it's the exact same product. The point is simple. The frame matters as much as, if not more than, the picture inside it. People don't just buy the product, they buy the way it's presented. The message you choose to highlight becomes the lens through which your customer sees your work. And the right frame can transform something ordinary into something extraordinary. You must sweat the small stuff. In 2023, Steven Bartlett's podcast, The Diary of a CEO, was named the most downloaded show on Apple's platform. This was a staggering achievement, especially for someone who never imagined he would become a groundbreaking host. Steven didn't think he asked the smartest questions, and he certainly didn't believe he was the best interviewer in the world. So, what was the secret behind his podcast success? The answer was hidden in the smallest details. Steven and his team sweated the small stuff. They poured attention into things most people would ignore. Like every podcaster, Steven researched his guests, where they lived, what they did, their achievements. But he went further. He learned about their favorite songs, their favorite drinks, even the room temperature that would help them feel most comfortable. These tiny considerations created a sense of ease, allowing guests to open up in ways they rarely did elsewhere. The attention to detail didn't stop there. His team harnessed the power of artificial intelligence to translate episodes into multiple languages. Listeners in France could hear Steven and his guests speaking fluent French in their own voices. This kind of innovation made the show accessible to millions more people around the globe. This idea of focusing on the small things is not new. The Japanese call it kaizen, a philosophy of continuous improvement. The principle is simple: by making small, consistent enhancements every day. Greatness is achieved over time. Toyota, one of the world's most respected car companies, built its success on this philosophy. No detail was too small. They welcomed every suggestion from employees, whether it was lowering a shelf to make tools easier to reach or increasing the size of a water bottle so workers stayed hydrated. On the surface, these might seem trivial, but together they shaped a culture of respect, innovation, and efficiency. Employees felt valued, and that sense of empowerment translated into extraordinary performance. Steven applied the same philosophy to his podcast. By sweating the details, whether it was the right drink, the perfect temperature, or the smallest adjustment in tone, he created an environment where authenticity could flourish. And it was these details, invisible to the average listener, that built the trust, intimacy, and success of The Diary of a CEO. The lesson is clear. Don't dismiss the small things. They may look insignificant in isolation, but together they can transform your work, your business, and your life. Don't be an ostrich. When the Titanic struck an iceberg, something strange happened. Survivors recall that many passengers simply refused to believe what was happening. Some returned to their cabins as if nothing were wrong. Others sat quietly and played cards, ignoring the chaos around them. Even as the ship tilted and water rushed in, few people rushed to the lifeboats. Many had to be forced aboard by the crew. But when the ship was finally moments away from sinking, denial gave way to panic. People screamed, pushed, and fought for seats in overcrowded lifeboats. This is what psychologists call the ostrich effect. Just as an ostrich buries its head in the sand to avoid danger, humans often ignore problems, hoping they'll disappear. We avoid discomfort whenever possible. When our spending gets out of control, we delay opening the bank app. When we feel unwell, we postpone the doctor's appointment. And when a tough conversation is looming, we put it off until tomorrow. But avoidance doesn't protect us. In fact, it magnifies the damage. Steven Bartlett admits he fell victim to this, too. He once delayed firing an employee who was consistently lazy, late, and careless. He avoided an uncomfortable conversation with a client. The longer he waited, the worse the problems became. That single employee dragged down his whole team. By avoiding conflict, Steven allowed harm to spread. So how do we break free from the ostrich effect? It starts with 4 steps. First, pause and acknowledge. Say to yourself, something isn't right. Awareness is the doorway to change. Second, reflect. Notice how you feel and what you're thinking. Pinpoint the exact problem. Is it something you need to act on or something that can be handled by someone else? Be honest with yourself and take responsibility where it's yours. Third, tell the truth. Confront the issue directly. Don't blame, don't accuse, just speak with clarity and honesty. Remember, delaying the conversation only makes the fallout bigger. And finally, seek the truth. Every situation has more than one side, and we are all biased. Don't just wait for your turn to speak. Truly listen. Try to understand the other perspective, even if it's uncomfortable. Facing problems head-on is rarely easy, but the sooner you step into discomfort, the sooner you regain control. Because burying your head in the sand may feel safe in the moment, but sooner or later the iceberg will catch up with you. The 3 bars for building great teams. In the world of sports, few coaches are as legendary as Sir Alex Ferguson, who led Manchester United for 26 years. His secret wasn't just tactics or talent, it was culture. Ferguson believed that values, discipline, and commitment were the true backbone of a winning team. That's why even when he had star players at their peak, he made the bold decision to let them go. To outsiders, it seemed unthinkable. These athletes were celebrated, adored, and critical to Manchester United's success. But behind the scenes, their behavior clashed with the team's values. One struggled with uncontrollable anger. Another lived under the constant glare of paparazzi, bringing unwanted distraction. Ferguson understood something vital. No matter how talented someone is, if they undermine the culture, they weaken the whole team. It takes courage to let go of talent for the sake of values. But Ferguson knew the long-term risk of tolerating toxic behavior because one person's conduct doesn't just affect them, it ripples through the entire group. The same truth applies in business, in organizations, and in life. Every member of a team influences the standard for everyone else. So how do you measure whether someone is helping or hurting the group? Steven Bartlett describes 3 bars. A bar raiser is someone who elevates the team. If everyone performed like them, shared their work ethic, values, and skills, the team would grow stronger. A bar maintainer keeps things steady. They do their job, but they don't push the limits. If everyone matched their pace, the team would remain the same, not better, not worse. And then there are the bar lowers. These are the individuals whose lack of discipline, poor attitude, or weak skills pull everyone else down. If the entire team mirrored their behavior, performance would collapse. Understanding these 3 bars is powerful. It tells you who deserves a promotion, who needs encouragement or training, and who may need to be let go. A great team isn't built by talent alone. It's built by people who consistently raise the bar, setting new standards for everyone around them. Conclusion. As we come to the end of this journey, let's reflect on the lessons that Steven Bartlett shares. Lessons that, if lived, can reshape not just your career but your entire life. You learn that success is built like buckets and the order matters. Knowledge comes first because it fuels your skills. With knowledge and skills, you build a network. From that network, resources begin to flow. And with time, your reputation, the most fragile but powerful bucket of all, starts to shine. You discover that mastery isn't about studying in silence, but about stepping into the light. When you teach, when you share, when you risk your reputation, you accelerate your growth. Pressure becomes your ally, forcing you to improve until the skill becomes second nature. You also saw the value of thinking differently, of daring to embrace the absurd. Sometimes it takes a blue slide in an office or an idea that seems outrageous to make the world pay attention. The boldest moves are often the ones people never forget. Framing matters, too. It's not just about what you offer. It's about how you present it. The right frame can turn ordinary into extraordinary, shifting perspective and creating desire where none existed before. And then there are the small things, the details most people ignore. Steven reminds us through the philosophy of Kaizen that greatness is often hidden in the tiny improvements we make each day. A small adjustment, a single thoughtful touch repeated consistently becomes the foundation of lasting excellence. We also learn the danger of avoidance. The ostrich effect teaches us that problems don't disappear when ignored, they grow. Facing discomfort, telling the truth, and confronting challenges directly are the only ways to move forward with strength and clarity. Finally, you discovered the 3 bars that define every team. The bar raisers who lift everyone higher, the maintainers who keep things steady, and the lowerers who drag the group down. A great team isn't built by accident. It's built by protecting values, raising standards, and choosing people who elevate the culture. And so, the message is clear. Success is not a destination. It is a journey, a cycle of learning, growing, falling, and rising again. Don't stop when you feel comfortable. Don't pause when you feel proud. There is always another level to reach, another lesson to learn, another chance to raise the bar for yourself and for those around you. If you live by these principles, if you embrace these laws, then your path to success is not a question of if, it's only a matter of when. Thank you for listening to this audiobook summary of The Diary of a CEO by Steven Bartlett. I hope the lessons you've just heard have sparked new ideas, challenged the way you think, and given you tools you can use to grow in your own journey of success. Remember, greatness doesn't come from luck or chance. It comes from the choices you make, the habits you build, and the principles you live by every single day. If you found value in this summary, imagine the impact of exploring even more wisdom from the world's best books. That's exactly what you'll find here on Neuro Whispers, a channel dedicated to success, wealth, mindset, productivity, and personal growth. By subscribing, you won't just be following another channel. You'll be joining a community of people committed to becoming the best version of themselves. So, if you're ready to keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing your limits, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. And don't stop here. Go check out the other audiobook summaries waiting for you on the channel. Each one is packed with insights that could be the breakthrough you've been looking for. Until next time, stay curious, stay motivated, and keep striving for greatness.